come spend a busy day with me in the kitchen as I make some fresh pasta sauce from our garden tomatoes, make some peach crisp, and some fresh Einkorn sourdough bread. The day before, I had previously made a wood wax or wood butter, whatever you want to call it, and it just had 3 parts coconut oil to 1 part beeswax, and I really like using it on our cutting boards and spoons. It keeps them from drying out so fast. The oil, it just doesn't last near as long as the waxy feel does, so I know the beeswax probably isn't the best for you, but I know it's natural, but that's what we use, and it lasts a lot longer than the regular oil. If you guys are on my email list, then you probably saw earlier this week I sent out an email saying that I got a grain mill, and I was talking about how we switched from modern day wheat. We were using just store-bought organic wheat, and now we are using ancient grain, and we're using Einkorn. It's the only one I've used yet, but I'm curious to use Kamut. I think that's how you say it. But a lot of people say that they like that one, but so far we've only used Einkorn, and we are loving it. It's different to get used to, so it's a very sticky flour and a sticky dough, but we are loving it, and it's got a little bit of a different flavor, so that's been an adjustment, but we haven't made anything that we didn't like. I would say the trickiest part about it so far has been trying to adjust recipes to be whole wheat Einkorn, and I have put a few of them over on my blog, so you can go and look at that, but it doesn't behave the same as an all-purpose flour. You can, of course, mill your wheat, and then you can run it through a sifter, and it removes the bran and the germ, and then you're left with all-purpose flour. So I do sometimes do that in our recipes, and if you use the all-purpose version of it without the bran and the germ, then it does behave just like a regular all-purpose flour that you get in the store. So I'm trying to go with whole wheat, that way we can get all the nutrients and stuff from it. But it is a little bit of a challenge, and you can see whenever I make this sourdough bread, it does not work. Like, it's just too sticky. So at the very end, after I'm done mixing it up, I do go back and add a little bit more flour, probably about a 1/4 cup actually, if not 1/2 cup. So it does require a lot more flour. Since we did decide to switch to using ancient grains and going with a grain mill, which I got my grain mill off of eBay, so if you're looking for a grain mill, check there, but I would just make sure that they package it really well, because mine did not come packaged well, and there's actually several plastic pieces on the bottom of it that are broke, which I didn't really care because it's hidden, so you can't really see it, and it still works, but it did come a little bit damaged, but it's used, so it doesn't really matter. But I would recommend buying used just because they are so expensive, but I just thought of it as an investment for our kitchen and something that we can use for a long time. But we did change up this wall right here. We ended up putting a shelf above this, and we moved our kitchen island that we did have over to this wall. And then if you remember back to where the kitchen was finished in the very beginning, we had an enamel top table. We brought that enamel top table back out, and that is our kitchen island again. But Ben actually built a wooden shelf on the bottom, so now I have extra storage space on the bottom of that as well. It's truly one of the best things about having an unfitted kitchen, because anytime something does not work for me, I'm going to change it, because it makes the kitchen function so much faster and smoother if it all works and just flows together. So the Hoosier cabinet was not working for me, especially whenever I would pull out the top, because I kept all my kitchen tools and stuff in the bottom drawer, and I would have to pull the drawer completely out to be able to get to it whenever the countertop was pulled out. So it just really didn't work, and especially whenever we changed to using Einkorn flour, it does not last if you leave it at room temperature, so now we keep it in the freezer if we already mill it. So it just didn't work out for us. We had an extremely busy weekend, so there was no time to can or preserve any of the tomatoes that we had. So I ended up having to put baskets of them in the freezer and just get to them today whenever I had a chance. And I had also fresh tomatoes that I was using too, so they're going to get mixed together. But I probably would not freeze the tomatoes ever again unless I just absolutely had to. Like, they were going to go bad if I didn't put them in the freezer. And this was my first time ever freezing them and then working them up. And I don't recommend it just because they get so watery. And I know you're not supposed to thaw them in the water, but this was the only day I had to work on it, so I needed to get them thawed out as quickly as possible. So a lot of people say if you let them thaw on a drying rack and let all the liquid like leak off of them, then it won't be near as watery. But since it was watery, I did have to cook down my sauce for several more hours instead of just the typical 4 hours that I let it simmer, just to get that really nice thick sauce. So I probably wouldn't do it again, but it worked in a pinch. When it comes to boiling down your sauce or simmering it down so that it can get thick, one of the biggest tips that I can give is to make sure that you preheat your stock pot. So I have stainless steel stock pots. I'm not really sure if it's the same if you're using the enamel stock pots, but I used to never preheat my stock pot at all. And I would burn my sauce every single time, and you could not stir to the bottom because it would always just be burnt on the bottom. So finally, I learned how to preheat a stainless steel pot, and you think that you are absolutely like scorching your sauce whenever you pour it in, but I promise it does not scorch or stick or burn at all. And I let this cook down for, I want to say it was like 6 hours this day, and it did so good. It didn't stick at all, and since I've had this pot, it does not stick at all as long as you preheat it. But if you don't preheat, then it's going to stick every time. This year's garden truly was not any count just because we have had such a dry summer, and it just shows a lot, especially in our hay. And we have never had such a dry summer since we've been here. We've been here for 3 years now. This month makes 3 years. And we have only got one cutting of hay so far, and it looks like we're probably not even going to get a full second cutting just because we have had such a lack of rain. And the only thing that's come out of our garden and done good was my tomatoes. Everything else has really suffered. Our cucumbers and zucchini, those died really early on. I think I ended up getting 6 quarts of pickles and worked those up. And then for the zucchini, I put 4-quart freezer bags in the freezer just for zucchini muffins this fall. And our beans, they ended up dying. We got several batches that we just ate fresh, but we didn't get a can any. I ended up buying beans from the produce auction actually to put up just because we do eat so many green beans. So I knew that we would need some, but we had to end up buying those. And then our corn, it got ate by bugs. It did not make it at all. I cut off what I could and ended up getting 6 pints. But we've been to the market trying to find some corn to buy, and nobody has it. So I think everybody's corn in our area did really bad because if you do find it, it is going for very expensive. But we've only found it at one auction so far, and it was just too expensive to even buy. When we switched to Einkorn flour, I ended up making an all-new sourdough starter just from Einkorn flour. And right here, I'm just feeding it. I switched between these 2 jars. I like the Weck jars, but then I also got a sourdough kit recently, and I really like the jar that I'm about to put it into. It has lines on it, so it makes it easier to see whenever it has doubled, tripled, whatever in size. But one thing I have found with the Einkorn sourdough is you have to make it extremely thick just because it gets essentially ate through a lot quicker. So it feeds much faster. And where my old starter, I could feed it and it would be ready in 12 hours. This one I can feed it and it's ready in 6 to 8 hours. and our house is the same temperature and stuff. It's just because it is just faster acting. So I do like that about it. It seems to be quicker, but I do have to make it thicker just so it slows it down just a little bit. This evening we're going over to Ben's dad's house to help them work on their roof. So I'm making some peach crisp to take over there, and I'm using einkorn flour. But one of the hardest things to get used to whenever we switched flours was realizing that not everybody is going to like the taste of it. So I put it in where I can, but if people come over, then I still have to buy like store-bought bread and store-bought stuff for them. Even though we'll eat the einkorn stuff, I find that other people do not like it at all. And I understand it's an acquired taste, but in a peach crisp like this, you cannot taste the difference. Like, I took it over there and I didn't even tell them. I probably should have, but I didn't tell them that there was einkorn flour in it, and they all loved it. So in desserts and stuff like this, you cannot taste it at all, and I think that's a really great way to start to work it into your diet, because if you just start with sourdough einkorn, it is a very bold taste, and it's very earthy. I don't know how else to describe it other than that. I know a lot of people describe it as a nutty flour, but to me it just tastes earthy, I think. And one thing that I have found with making the einkorn bread is that instead of using sugar with it, so instead of making it and putting regular cane sugar in your sandwich bread, it pairs much better with a natural sweetener. So honey in it is so much better compared to using just a cane sugar or anything else. Like, it just pairs so much better with it, and it's like the flavors go together. Like, they're not working against each other, but they're working together. So Ben loves the einkorn honey bread, and so do I. This recipe for the peach crisp is up on my website, so I can link that down below for you guys. But it is an einkorn recipe, and I know a lot of you guys want to switch to einkorn after talking with you guys in email, but a lot of you guys haven't yet. So if you want to make this, you can use all-purpose flour, but you need to decrease the amount of flour by a little bit. So if you want, I know it's kind of hard to explain, but instead of the 3 tablespoons in the peach like filling, only do 2 tablespoons. And then I think it calls for half a cup of flour. I would probably do a third a cup in the crumble topping. So just decrease it by a little bit, and if it doesn't look right, then add just like a tablespoon or a teaspoon of extra flour until it does look right. In order to get a really crispy peach crisp, but like the top of it, some of them, whenever I've made them before, they come out a little bit mushy. I do not like that. I like mine to be actually crispy. So to do that, I know a lot of people don't like to use their hands, but I use my hands, and if you can keep it in like little clumps, it's better that way. And try to keep it on top of the peaches. Like, don't push it down in the liquid, because the liquid is going to form like a gel almost, because you put flour in it. So it's going to become like a filling texture, kind of like an apple pie. And then the crisp, you want that separate. So don't push it down in there, just let it sit on top. That way it doesn't absorb too much liquid, and it can actually get crispy. And let it cook for the full 45 minutes. I know some people like to pull it out and it's going to look dark on top, but I promise it's not burnt. It's just getting nice and golden brown, and it'll be crispy that way. Since we've been getting so many tomatoes from the garden, I've been taking full advantage of it and making tons of sauce. So far, I've made pizza sauce, and then this is more of like a marinara sauce or just spaghetti sauce, anything that you can put on any kind of pasta like that. And I have found that since I'm using meatier tomatoes this year, so these are Santos and Celebrities tomatoes, and I have had to change my recipes completely, because last year I used more watery tomatoes. They were like beefsteak, pink lady, stuff like that. And the consistency and the flavor is just so different. So those recipes are on my blog, but I'm not actually using those this year just because I did not like the taste of them. So I've had to change my recipes. We like the sauce that we made last year, but the flavor just does not work with these meatier tomatoes. So we have had to change it, but I've enjoyed getting to experiment and make a new recipe. But something I'm still working on is a ketchup recipe. That is hard to make, especially because it's hard to find one that actually tastes good. So that is something I'm still currently working on. In the sourdough kit that I was talking about earlier, I got these silicone Banneton baskets also, and it comes with a jar Banneton baskets. It comes with two different shapes and sizes. It comes with the oval size also, and I like that they're collapsible, but the best thing about them is that they are washable. I have had so much trouble out of the wood material ones and the cloth molding. Even if I pull up the liner on the inside, it still molds and you cannot get those stains out. And then the wood starts to mold and it is very nasty. So I got rid of mine a while ago and switched to these silicone baskets, and they're a game changer. You can wash them and they air dry. You don't have to worry about mold building up on them or anything. And the dough comes out of them so much easier, I think. You sprinkle a little flour in there and you don't have to worry about it sticking at all. I'll link the exact sourdough kit that I got down below for you guys. But as you can tell here, this einkorn dough is so much stickier than your average sourdough. So it is harder to work with, and it's an adjustment trying to figure out how to work it. So I truly just do my best, and it always works out. It's just, it doesn't like to be worked with almost. It works against you. So I almost find that the less that you work with it and just let it rise on its own, it does better. And also I've found that you do have to put it in the fridge and let it ferment overnight. It does not do well if you just like let it sit out on the counter and let it ferment for like 8 hours and then bake it. It doesn't rise near as good as coming fresh out of the fridge. So I do let mine sit overnight now. After I get done shaping it, I put it on my stove next to the burner that's on just so it can get some heat in there. And whenever it looks like it's about doubled in size, then I do put it in the fridge and let it ferment overnight, and then just take it out the next morning and bake it. I had been so excited and anxiously waiting on this package to arrive all day, and as soon as we were walking out the door to go to Ben's dad's house, it arrived, so I had to come back inside and set it up really quick and look at it. But it's actually an air purifier, and I have been wanting one for a really long time, especially because since we're living through renovations, I do worry about all the dust, and I clean as much as we can, and we do block off the areas where we are working. So right now we're currently working in the pantry, and especially it being that close to the kitchen, we shut the pantry door, but a lot of dust still comes out, and it worries me being by our food and us just constantly breathing that in. So I wanted to get something that could give me a little bit of peace of mind about it, because I do get asked a lot by you guys what purifier we use or what we do about all the dust and stuff. So it does make me worry about it that much more because I'm constantly being asked about it, but I know you guys are just curious, and a lot of you guys are actually doing renovations too. So I thought it was time that we should probably get something and do something about it. And this one does over 3,000 square foot area. So with the addition being blocked off, it puts our house under the 3,000 square foot, because with the addition it's about 4,000. So, but since it blocked off, then this one I thought would be the perfect size for us. And I'm not sure if I'm going to leave it here in the dining room or put it upstairs in our bedroom, since we are in the bedroom whenever we sleep and stuff. But I'm not sure if it needs to be downstairs to get all the rooms, and especially just because the dining room is at the bottom of the staircase here. So if you guys have used an air purifier before, let me know where you think it needs to go, either upstairs in our bedroom or at the bottom of the staircase next to the dining room. But I will keep you guys updated on it and how we like it. So far, we've been using it for 2 days and we really like it. I like that it has a really big filter. As you can see here, it is thick. It's not like a little thin, flimsy filter like most of them have. This one is very thick and very durable. So I'm excited to use it and see how we like it. And something else about it is that it does have different fan speeds, so I do like that so far. But I will try and get a discount code for you guys, and if I can get one, then I'll leave it down below for you guys. We ended up getting back from Ben's dad's house really late, but I needed to get this sauce canned. I wouldn't be able to work on it the next day, so it had to get done tonight, and I didn't leave the burner on while I was gone. I just let it sit with the lid over top of it while I was gone, so it was still warm by the time we got back, and it had cooked down at least a third, if not half. It was close to a half, but I ended up getting 9 quarts out of it, and I water bath canned it for 25 minutes. This recipe will be up on the blog either next week or the week after, but I'll link it down below for you guys once it is on my blog. And we ended up eating leftover chili this night. I was very thankful we had leftover chili, that way I did not have to cook. But that is going to be it for this video, so thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys will like and subscribe.